Alrighty guys, welcome back to another Asphalt Legends Unite video. Today I am finally going to review the ZENVO AURORA TUR. This is the best car I have currently in my garage for ALU, so I wanted to take some time, that's why it's a little bit late, and let the car marinate in my garage, make sure I know all of the ins and outs of the performance, make sure to get a couple of multiplayer seasons under my belt with this car so I can give you guys the best full honest review I can. Before we get into the details though, I want to mention a couple of things. Firstly, you'll see a description box, so click that and you can see all the links to my different social media channels, including my Discord if you want to hang out with me and chat, and as well I have my Instagram link there for some cool car photography. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as I mentioned, this is the best car in my garage by rank. It is just above 4,800, so not quite at max, but I am lacking a couple of epics, but for all intents and purposes, this is the best car I have currently. So in terms of rank, it does outrank my SSC Tuatara and my Jesko, which are the other best cars in my garage. And if we're talking about competition, we are going to talk about those cars because that is where this car falls into place. It is certainly not up to the levels of some of the recent kings, such as the Devil 16 or the Racer Tachyon Tartarus. So yeah, don't compare this car to that. You would be comparing this car to the Tuatara and the Jesko and a couple of the other cars that just hit that 300 mph mark. So now that I'm starting to talk numbers, let's talk numbers, because that is the top speed for this car, just above 300 mph with nitro, not quite on the level of some of the other cars like the Tuatara and the Jesko, but it gets very darn close. Acceleration is a bit better than those other cars. Those start to top out at the high 70s, very low 80s. Currently, I'm at 81.29 with this car, and of course, once we talk about handling, there really is no telling what the stat does to the cars, but I will say that this car is definitely sharper than my Tuatara, seems to be able to get some of those floaty drips more as well, but it is certainly not up to the task of the Jesko. That car is so much more sharp and a little bit more bouncy as well compared to this car. And finally, when we talk about nitro, that's where this car falls flat. Currently, because I don't have any epics on this car, I am sitting just below 40 nitro, so I'm at 39.97. And we'll talk about why I think this is the stat that really holds this car back from true greatness. Now, in terms of real world performance, if you are a skilled driver, I think you can do some real damage to this car. If you're going up against any old Joe with just another Tuatara or Jesko and you know how to take advantage of the tracks, get as much airtime as possible, you are going to shred with this car, just as if you were playing with a Tuatara and a Jesko. Because to be completely honest, the gameplay experience isn't very different compared to those types of cars at all, which honestly I was hoping at the very least I was going to get with this car. So thankfully, as I expected, this is not a complete disappointment. I am still happy I spent the tokens on this car, and just for context, I do want to explain how I got this car. I did get it during the previous burst of speed, and in total I spent just over 70,000 tokens on this car. Now, I did also get the Lykan Hypersport and the Ford Zilla as well, so it wasn't that I spent tokens only on this car, but of course the packs contained all three cars anyway. With that being said, I certainly could have spent more tokens on other cars, and I could have spent less tokens and gotten no cars. So with that context, that's how much I spent in terms of tokens on this car. I would have liked to get something like the Devil 16 or the Tartarus or even the Hennessy Venom F5, but that's what we're sort of stuck with if you're just spending tokens, because honestly, without spending real currency and real money on other events such as the Drive Syndicate, you really didn't have a chance to get some of those really top end S-Class cars. So this was sort of my best opportunity to add another high-end S-Class car to my garage. Now, going into it, I didn't really do enough research as I should have. With that being said, I didn't really have another choice. I wanted a good S-Class car. This was sort of the only one available to me at that time, and I didn't really see that this car is a little overranked. We'll talk about why. I previously mentioned that nitro, it's just below 40 for me, even though I don't have any epics applied. So that's really the crutch of this car. If I'm going to be honest with you guys, this car does have so much potential to be greater than it is, and I do think that it is overranked compared to some of the other cars. The performance in terms of handling and agility isn't quite on par with the Jesko, and in terms of top speed, I also don't think it reaches the TUR as well. So because it's ranked over 5,000, I thought it was going to be a little bit better, considering that the acceleration stat was slightly higher than those cars. But honestly, on the track, it doesn't feel like it. So this car is a little disappointing in terms of the rank, but not disappointing if you think that, well, this could have been even more floppier. And that's the real disappointment, is the nitro, like I said earlier a million times. If this car had just a little bit more nitro efficiency, you would be able to keep Shockwave for much longer. And you'll notice throughout this video that with Shockwave, you don't accelerate at all. It is very rare that you get above 250 miles per hour from a Shockwave. So honestly, I think this car is overranked. If Gameloft gave it a little more nitro efficiency, maybe even just 1, 2, or 3 more points, it would make a huge difference. And it doesn't make sense considering the rank, considering the stats like lower top speed compared to the other cars that I've mentioned, and just barely better acceleration. Now, if we were talking about 85, 86 acceleration, then I could forgive the low nitro efficiency. However, I do think this car deserves a little bit of a buff if they want to keep at the rank above 5,000. That's my main disappointment with this car, is the nitro efficiency, and that's where this car does fall flat. You'll notice with the other very high-end top speed cars, they do have slightly better nitro efficiency sometimes. Of course, the Devil 16 and the Racer are going to have lower nitro efficiency. That makes sense considering they have well above 300 mile per hour top speeds, but for the other ones that sort of hover around that 300 mark, like the Jesko, like the TUR, it does feel like you can maintain being in either double tap nitro or Shockwave just a bit better compared to this car, and that's what makes the difference when you're actually in the game. Sure, you could talk about stats all day long, but it's how the car actually reacts in game. And when you're doing 360s, if you get unlucky and hit maybe one of those ramps at an off angle and you get a slower 360, you're not able to maintain double tap nitro, so you have to constantly spam. And that means that not only does the performance not keep up with the other cars like I've mentioned, but it also means that it's just so frustrating and not satisfying to play with this car when you're constantly spamming the nitro bar. With that being said, as you can see from the gameplay, I could hold my own against some of the other cars, and it does depend on what the other cars are available in terms of the seasons. Sometimes you aren't able to access certain cars because of the car filters, so depending on your competition, this could either be a very good car or it could be one that you may want to avoid. With that being said, overall, I did hold my own compared to some of the other top speed S-Class cars, and again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if your skill level is definitely competent or above average, you'll have no problem controlling this car. As you can see, some of the laps that I put together are pretty good, especially compared to the TUR and the Jesko. You can get pretty on par with those cars, and you'll start out in the races a little ahead because of the acceleration. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Overall, I'm going to give the ZENVO AURORA TUR a recommendation, but a little bit hesitant. If this is your only option, I would go ahead and go for it. It's not a bad car. However, if you are saving up and you know that you'll have access to some of the other high-end S-Class cars, maybe the Venom F5, maybe the Devil 16 now that we have the Gauntlet, I would focus on those cars, especially if you already have a pretty good garage. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on the ZENVO AURORA TUR in the comment section down below, and I will see you all later.